the hardest thing you'll ever do in your life is to come out and talk about what happened to you, but in the end, it's better for yourself.
Mary says confronting her sexual assault was terrifying, but she says since speaking out, her journey has been empowering.
Now I've found this inner strength within me to say that I'm not giving up. I'm going to continue to fight and be a survivor.
Jane is another survivor, determined to change her life around since being sexually assaulted.
Now I'm going back to school, I'm doing a lot better, I feel a lot better about myself, and I feel like a lot of the weight is off my shoulders.
These two survivors found light at the end of a dark tunnel, but they worry about the countless others still suffering in the shadows. The U.S. Department of Justice says someone is sexually assaulted every 2 minutes, but it's also the type of crime that's least likely to be reported.
I think that society just don't want to know that it's going on, or they just don't want to deal with it.
Mary and Jane are not their real names. For their privacy and protection, we've masked their identities, but they're sharing their stories to encourage others to step up, speak out, and find healing. Mary was just 13 years old when she was sexually assaulted by her stepfather.
It was one of the scariest things I've ever been through in my life.
He was already physically abusive, but it turned sexual when he was alone with her one afternoon.
The next thing I remember is laying on his bed and he was pulling his pants back up. He looked right at me and said, "If you tell anybody, your mom and sister will be next."
That threat paralyzed Mary, and the 13-year-old kept the secret for the next 7 years.
If I talked about it or if I even thought about it, it made it real. And I didn't want it to be real.
As for Jane, she found herself the victim in a scenario that repeats itself all over the country.
It was awful. I didn't want any of my family to know.
She was drinking at a party with a friend who left her there alone. She was then coerced into a room by a man where she was forced into sexual acts against her will.
I didn't think they would believe me.
Because she was underage and drinking, Jane, like Mary, told no one, keeping her assault a secret. She thought she'd be blamed for what happened to her, and like many victims of sexual assault, she found destructive ways to cope.
I tried to block it out, and I dealt with it in other ways with a lot of alcohol and substance abuse.
Leanne Gerbavicic works with victims of sexual assault here at Superior's Center Against Sexual and Domestic Abuse. She says these kinds of stories happen all too often, and the lifelong after effects can be debilitating.
For example, depression, post-traumatic stress syndrome, unhealthy coping skills.
Trying to cope alone in silence is not unusual. The U.S. Justice Department says 6 out of 10 sexual assaults are not reported. But why? Fear is a major barrier keeping victims from getting the help that they need. Fear of retaliation from their attacker, fear that no one will believe them, that they'll be blamed and become a victim again.
Well, why was she wearing what she was wearing? Why was she drinking? It doesn't matter if you were drinking. It doesn't matter what you were wearing. No one has the right to sexually abuse you.
That's what Jane heard from the first person she opened up to, that she deserved it, that somehow it was her fault.
I think every victim or survivor needs to know that no one deserves that, no matter what the circumstance is.
But there is hope. The staff at programs like CASDA provide a safe place for victims. Advocates offer emotional support, legal help, and provide sheltering. But they go a step further, educating the public and breaking through the ignorance surrounding sexual assault.
But it can be happening next door, it can be happening to your child, it could be happening to anyone you know, and they might just not be saying anything because they're scared.
Gerbavicic says that we can do our part too.
I strongly believe if we have community supporters, just our everyday citizens that believe these issues exist, then we won't have individuals who have the fear of reporting because they'll fear that they'll have that additional community support behind them.
With help, those assaulted can move forward. Mary and Jane say they're living proof of that. But it takes support from others to get there.
It's very important to think of myself as a survivor, not a victim.
It's not an easy journey, but one these women say is worth it.
I feel like I can be myself again and not be afraid and not let this hold me back from anything.
With photojournalist Dustin Johnson, I'm Brittany Falkers for Eyewitness News.